Today we're going to take another look at If I Were President by Catherine Steyer. Except for today we're going to focus on some different things. We're going to focus today on main idea and details. And remember that the main idea is the big idea in the text, the big idea. And the details give more information about that main idea. It sometimes gives us the details of how, what, when, where, and why. We're also going to be looking at classifying and categorizing. And to classify and categorize things when you're reading is how good readers organize information. That way they can tell how things are alike, they can make connections between things that are happening in the story or another story or even their life. And it's also a good way to remember details. We're also going to be looking at something that the author does in this story, and that's repetition. And that just means that words are repeated in the text. So let's take another look at If I Were President. It would be great to be president of the United States. If I were president, that means after a big campaign with speeches and posters and TV ads, the people would have chosen me as their leader. Years of planning and hard work would have prepared me for that day. If I were president, I'd promise to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, because that would be my job. All right, so this is the first time we see that use of repetition. So what words are repeated? If I were president, right? If I were president, if I were president. Those are the words that are repeated in that text. So that's how the author uses repetition. Then I'd move to a mansion called the White House with more than 100 rooms, and I'd have to remember my new address, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. If I were president, I'd start work early each morning in the Oval Office. Although I'd try to do what's best for my country, not everyone would agree with my decisions. But I'd get help making those decisions from a group of people called my cabinet. If I were president, the people would be my boss, and I'd have to find out what they wanted. It wouldn't be easy. Different people would want different things. If I were president, I'd be in charge of the armed forces, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. If I were president, each year I'd give a speech to Congress called the State of the Union. All over the country, people would be watching and listening. I'd talk about how our country was doing and suggest ways to solve the problems. All right, we're going to stop right there and just talk about the main idea and the details. What do you think the main idea of the story is on page 12? This is page 12 over here. Yeah, it's probably that each year the president gives a speech to Congress. He's supposed to give a speech to all of Congress. And what do you think the details are? The name of the speech, right? The State of the Union. People all over the country watch and listen. This speech will tell how the country is doing, and it might tell ways that solve problems. So the main idea is this speech that the president gives each year, and all of the other things on page 12 are the details that go along with it. Now imagine creating laws for a whole country. That's something Congress and I would work on together. If I were president, the agents of the Secret Service would guard me. Everywhere I'd go, they'd go too. If I were president, I'd travel in my limousine or in my own private airplane, Air Force One. I'd meet with the leaders of other nations. Maybe together we could work to improve our world. All right, let's stop and classify and categorize here. All right, how can we classify and categorize the information in the text about the president? Maybe we could talk about the people that he works with, like Congress and other leaders around the world. We could talk about the different jobs that the president has so far. He protects the Constitution. He's in charge of the armed forces, right? A lot of different things. We could maybe classify and categorize the special types of things that a president has, like the Secret Service or Air Force One or the Oval Office. So there are a lot of ways to categorize the information in this text, to group it together, and to think about it in a different way. If I were president, I'd comfort families that had been in an earthquake, hurricane, or flood. Then I'd help them rebuild their towns. If I were president, one of my favorite jobs would be passing out medals to people who had done brave deeds. All right, we're going to stop right there. What additional details can we classify and categorize as jobs of the president? Okay, comforting families that have been through tragedies like earthquakes and floods and hurricanes, and giving out medals. So there are two more jobs on page 16 and 17 that we could classify as a job of the president. If I were president, my words and picture would appear in newspapers and magazines all over the world. Even my dog would make headlines. If I were president, the house I grew up in would be famous. People would ask my mom and dad my mom for a tour of everything, even my tree house. All right. So again, here's the repetition. I mean, we've heard it through we have heard it on every single page. If I were president, if I were president. So kind of imagining what it would be like to be the president of the United States, right? If I were president, the people could only elect me twice. That's 8 years altogether. Soon, a new president with different ideas would move into the White House. If I were president, they might someday make a statue of me, like the white marble statue of Abraham Lincoln, in the Lincoln Memorial, or the president's heads carved into Mount Rushmore. Or someday, my face might show up on the country's money. Did you know President Lincoln is on the penny? President Jefferson is on the nickel, and President Washington is on the dollar bill. And who knows, someday I just might be president of the United States. Okay, so we could classify and categorize the information on these last couple of pages. Maybe we could say how we remember our past presidents. That could be a way. We make statues of them. We have Mount Rushmore. We put their faces on money. That's ways that we remember past presidents. So that's a way we could classify and categorize the information on these last 4 pages. All right, before we're done, we do need to do some vocabulary work. There's the first word. I'd start work early each morning in the Oval Office. Now, you already probably know what an oval is. It's a shape, right? And they call it the Oval Office because it is in the shape of an oval, of course.
Oval, shaped like an egg. The football is an oval. It is shaped like an egg. Oval.
All right, so oval means kind of shaped like an egg. You know what an oval shape is, and that's the shape of the president's office. All right, let's find our next word. There it is. In my own private airplane, Air Force One. The president has a private airplane named Air Force One, and no one else but the president and the people traveling with the president can ride on it. So you can't buy a ticket to get onto Air Force One. All right, so private means for use by one or only a few people. So you can't get onto Air Force One. That's made just for the president and for the people that work for him. And the last word that we want to talk about is the word improve. And this is a really important word. Maybe together we could work to improve our world.
Improve, to make better. I am trying to improve my writing. I want to be better at writing. Improve.
All right, that's an important word because we always should be working to improve ourselves, whether it's we're working to improve our writing or improve our reading or improve our attitude, maybe. But the president will work with other leaders to improve our world, or we hope that he will. All right, so I am going to include your vocabulary so that you can take another look at it. You can take a look at those definitions on Schoology.